I want you to imagine that you are driving a highly advanced vehicle. I mean, absolute, state-of-the-art. Everything is perfectly tuned. The engine is humming. The navigation systems are flawless. And you feel, utterly untouchable.
Right, like nothing could possibly go wrong.
Exactly. And suddenly, without a single warning light, without even a stutter in the engine, everything goes dark.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the steering locks up, the alarm starts screaming, and you realize you are taking heavy fire from the pitch black. How do you respond when the illusion of control is instantly and violently shattered?
It really is the ultimate test of any system, isn't it? I mean, we build these incredibly sophisticated machines to insulate ourselves from danger, to give us a sense of mastery over the unknown.
So we don't have to think about it.
Precisely. But when the automation fails, all that insulation just burns away. You are left with nothing but human resilience. And frankly, the transition from relying on a machine to relying on sheer grit is, well, it's terrifying.
It really is. And today's deep dive explores exactly that kind of nightmare scenario. We are examining a fascinating stack of logs, engineering reports, and medical transcripts from the USS Arawyn.
A truly incredible set of sources.
Yeah, they are. We're looking at the anatomy of a sudden catastrophic crisis. We're tracking how a highly trained, deeply confident crew navigates a brutal ambush in deep space.
And how they fight back when everything goes wrong.
Right. We're going to walk through the desperate, rule-breaking mechanical hacks that saved lives, and then we're going to dive into the heavy, quiet psychological toll of the aftermath. Okay, let's unpack this.
To really grasp the shock of this crisis, we have to look at the Arawyn just moments before the attack. This wasn't a ship limping along with a green crew.
Right, they were seasoned.
Exactly. The Arawyn was operating at absolute peak efficiency. The crew was dialed in.
Almost playfully confident, right. Like you have the Chief Tactical Officer, Lieutenant Commander McKinney. The logs show he's this seasoned veteran who actually hides a ghost file deep in the ship's tactical suite.
Yeah, that ghost file.
It's just 47 lines of incredibly elegant code. And he didn't do it maliciously. He wrote an unauthorized predictive algorithm because he felt the targeting sensors had a microsecond latency.
Which is incredibly minor, but he noticed it.
You noticed it, yeah. And he didn't trust the engineering department's automated diagnostics to fix it. He even set digital tripwires so he'd know if anyone messed with his patch.
But engineering does find it. Chief Engineer Harlan and his team don't just find it, they dissect it. They figure out exactly what McKinney was doing, and they wipe the code out entirely.
Without tripping the alarms.
Right. And the brilliant part is, they do it without triggering a single one of McKinney's security tripwires. They essentially walk into his digital house, rearrange the furniture, and leave without the alarm ever going off.
It's a total outsmarting. And McKinney realizes he's been beat, so he concedes the loss with style. He personally brings Chief Harlan an incredibly expensive bottle of real Islay Scotch.
With the bow.
Yes. He slaps a ridiculously childish red and yellow bow on it. I love this detail because it paints such a vivid picture for you. It establishes a baseline. This crew isn't just competent, they have surplus brain power.
They're sharp enough to play these high-level games with each other.
Exactly. They're a well-oiled machine. And because they are operating at that level, Captain Corbin orders a live fire calibration. She wants to stress test the newly repaired tactical systems, so they set a course for the Nabharak Shoals.
Which is a highly specific choice for a test. The shoals are essentially an uninhabited graveyard sector.
Right, full of debris.
Yeah, it is filled with the remnants of ancient dead planets, shattered moons, and derelict satellites. It is choked with silicate dust. Captain Corbin chose it because it provides a highly complex, isolated environment.
So no civilians get caught in the crossfire.
Precisely. It's the perfect place to stress test the very targeting sensors McKinney was worried about without any risk of interference.
So they get into the shoals. They run their drills. At one point, they have to drop their shields just to vent the ambient plasma heat from the test firing.
A standard procedure.
Right. They are exposed by the book for just a few minutes, and that is exactly when the strike happens. Total devastation. The ship is suddenly hammered by massive kinetic slugs and phased energy strikes.
And the attackers are completely invisible. The sensors are picking up nothing but static.
Wait, let me make sure I'm following the physics of this.
Oh.
They aren't cloaked, right? Like a Romulan warbird or something?
Not at all. What's fascinating here is how the ambient environment of the shoals was actively weaponized against the Arawyn.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. The attackers weren't hiding behind a cloaking field. They were using the debris. They were bouncing their phase energy beams off the heavy silicate dust and the shattered asteroids.
So the sensors were just getting confused?
Exactly. To the Arawyn sensors, it looked like the shots were manifesting out of empty space. Furthermore, the heat signatures of the attacking weapons were masked by the erratic thermal wakes of the dead planets.
Wow. So the ship's own data collection systems were lying to it?
Yes, the Arawyn's absolute reliance on automated data became its ultimate blind spot.
It's like a heavyweight boxer stepping into the ring for a shadowboxing drill. He's warmed up, he feels completely untouchable. And suddenly, the lights cut out, and someone starts swinging a baseball bat in the dark.
That is a perfect analogy.
Because you can't block what you can't see. So when your million-dollar sensors are reading ghosts, and your screens are just feeding you static, how do you even begin to fight back?
Well, you have to strip away the automation. All those complex systems they relied on to run the ship are suddenly useless.
Yeah.
The bridge is flying blind. They can no longer rely on standard protocol, which means survival instantly demands raw physical grit and some serious rule-breaking ingenuity.
And we see that immediately with McKinney. He takes tactical control of the bridge while they're getting hammered. His immediate priority isn't even shooting back.
Because he still can't see the target.
Right. It's getting the transporters back online so the wounded can be evacuated from the lower decks. But the subspace interference from the attack is acting like white noise, completely scattering the transporter confinement beams.
So McKinney makes a terrifying call. He bypasses every safety protocol written into the Starfleet manual.
I love this part. It's brilliant. McKinney realizes that if the subspace interference is like static drowning out a radio signal, he doesn't need a cleaner signal. He needs a louder one.
Exactly.
So he orders his tactical officer to take raw, unfiltered power from the aft phaser banks, literally weapons-grade capacitors, and route it directly into the transporter buffer. He's using the ship's guns as a megaphone to shout over the static.
Which is incredibly dangerous.
Oh, his officer actually hesitates because the computer is screaming that this power spike could fry the entire system and potentially detonate the deck.
But he pushes through.
Yeah, McKinney just looks at her and says, "Do not ask the computer for permission. Make it happen."
It's a perfect example of human judgment superseding algorithmic safety parameters in a crisis. But, while McKinney is brute-forcing the computer systems, Captain Corbin is facing a purely physical ordeal.
Right, because she was away from the bridge.
Exactly. When the ambush hit, she was down inspecting the lower decks. She is stranded on Deck 12. The comms are completely dead, and the gravity plating is fluctuating, which means the turbolifts are locked down.
So she climbs. She literally pries open a hatch and pulls herself up the vertical Jeffries tubes from Deck 12 all the way to the bridge.
A massive climb.
You read these logs, and the sensory details are incredible. It details her burning muscles. She actually notes regretting doing extra sets at the gym the night before.
I mean, who wouldn't?
Right. Her hands are slick with sweat and hydraulic fluid. She is hanging in this dark, claustrophobic tube, and she can physically feel the violent tremors vibrating to the metal ladder rungs as the ship takes secondary damage right below her.
That climb strips away all the insulation of command we talked about earlier. She isn't sitting in a chair pressing buttons. She is dragging herself through the mechanical bones of her ship, feeling every hit.
I have to push back on the way we usually talk about Starfleet here.
How so?
Well, we grow up watching these ships, and they're always pitched as this post-scarcity, perfectly polished utopia. Plush carpets, touch screens, Earl Grey tea on demand. But this incident completely shatters that image.
It really does.
It proves that when the chips are down, underneath the sleek panels, survival comes down to sweat, ripped cables, and sheer agonizing physical endurance.
I think you're hitting on the core design philosophy of these vessels. That pristine design is highly intentional. It is built to hide the machinery.
To make it feel safe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To make the crew feel safe in an environment deep space that is actively hostile to human life. So when that insulation is ripped away and the wires are exposed, the psychological shock is massive.
But to Corbin's credit, she doesn't let that shock paralyze her. When she finally hauls herself onto the bridge, completely disheveled, hair plastered to her face, uniform soaked in sweat, the moment her boots hit the deck, she commands the room.
Her physical presence alone anchors the bridge crew.
And because she and McKinney managed to hold the line up there, McKinney's insane transporter hack actually succeeds. The confinement beam punches through the static.
But that success comes with a brutal cost.
Yeah, it means the horrific reality of the lower decks is suddenly dumped squarely into the lap of the medical team.
It is an absolute bloodbath down there. Main engineering took a direct kinetic hit. A primary coolant stack breached under the pressure.
Oh, man.
And Chief Harlan, the brilliant engineer who just received that bottle of scotch, takes an 18-centimeter shard of shattered duranium directly to his skull. Lieutenant Caldwell, who tried to pull them out of the blast zone, suffers severe third-degree thermal burns.
And because main sickbay is cut off, the casualties are beamed directly to the auxiliary sickbay. Now, for you listening, keep in mind this is a small facility designed for minor overflow.
Maybe a sprained ankle or a mild burn.
Right. It is not equipped for catastrophic mass trauma. Dr. Claire Dunross is the trauma surgeon there, and she takes immediate command of the chaos. She institutes a brutal, instantaneous triage protocol.
Red tags go to the biobeds, yellow tags go to the floor.
Yeah. She is managing crush injuries, severe burns, and collapsed lungs, all while the ship's hull is literally groaning and buckling around them.
The environment in medical is pure desperation, and right in the middle of this, we get a profoundly revealing moment from Dr. Jorik.
The Vulcan physician.
Right. He is the absolute embodiment of stoic logic and standard protocol, but when the crisis peaks, he completely abandons the rulebook.
Main engineering is sealed off by an emergency blast door. Normally, you'd wire a bypass circuit to open it, but the circuits are fused.
So Jorik doesn't wait for a damage control team.
No, he wedges his hands into a tiny gap in the bulkhead and uses raw, physical Vulcan strength to force the jam door open on his own.
And he finds Chief Harlan bleeding out on the deck. And Jorik doesn't just administer a medical stimulant, he drops to his knees and initiates a Vulcan mind meld.
Wow.
Now, a mind meld is culturally supposed to be a profound, intimate sharing of consciousness, but Jorik weaponizes it.
Wait, how do you weaponize a mind meld?
Well, he doesn't just observe Harlan's fading consciousness. He uses the meld to issue a psychic command. He literally forces the thought into Harlan's dying mind, stay alive.
That's intense.
He forces his own willpower into the man's nervous system. Then he picks Harlan up and carries him through the spark-filled corridors to sickbay for emergency neurosurgery.
It's the absolute bleeding edge of medicine, fueled by pure willpower.
What's deeply moving here is the contradiction in Jorik's character. In his after-action report, he uses strict logic to justify his urgency. He formally writes that the chief engineer is a critical ship asset whose survival was mathematically necessary.
Of course he does.
But his actual actions, tearing blast doors open with his bare hands, commandeering a man's consciousness to force him to live, reveal a deep, undeniable emotional tether to his crewmate.
He's rationalizing his own feelings.
Exactly. He has seamlessly integrated his profound care for Harlan into his logical framework.
We see that bleeding edge of science pushed again with Dr. Amberlin. She is in the corner of that chaotic sickbay, performing high-stakes spinal surgery on the science chief, Sorvak.
Whose spine was severed by falling debris.
Right. She's using a genetronic replicator to rapidly build a new spinal cord. But she runs into a terrifying problem, synaptic ghosting.
Right, because nerves essentially act as biological wires.
Wait, let me break this down. The ambient electromagnetic radiation from the ship's failing shields and the weapons fire is actually inducing microcurrents inside the new nerve tissue she's growing.
It's interfering with the signals.
Yeah, the neural signals are literally dissipating into the surrounding air before they can connect to the brain. She's watching the nervous system short-circuit in real time.
So she has to abandon the surgery.
She does. She places him in a maximum level stasis field, literally freezing him in time, just to stop the degradation until they can reach the safety of a starbase.
While medical is fighting these agonizing battles to stabilize the dying, the bridge finally manages to piece together the raw, uncorrupted telemetry from the sensors.
And this leads to a chilling realization about who is actually attacking them.
Very chilling.
Wait, hold on. Let's look at the logs. Engineering notices a constant power draw on their shields. But if someone is shooting at you with the intent to destroy you, they're trying to collapse your shields with impact force, not systematically sip power from them, right?
Precisely. The telemetry didn't show chaotic impact spikes. It showed a rhythmic, repeating mathematical sequence.
So it wasn't just an attack.
No, it wasn't just draining power, it was an interaction.
Like a handshake protocol, like when you open your laptop in a coffee shop and it sends out a signal searching for a Wi-Fi router?
Yes. The bridge realizes they aren't fighting a cloaked warbird. They aren't fighting a malicious enemy commander. It is an automated, ancient defense lattice left behind by whoever used to inhabit the shoals.
Oh my God.
The lattice was continuously sweeping the sector and interrogating the Arawyn's shields with weapons fire to provoke a response. During the chaos of the attack, the Arawyn's computer automatically locked its shield harmonic modulation to stabilize against the impacts.
And once that specific frequency locked,
The ancient algorithm matched it to a permitted list.
and it just stopped.
It just stopped firing entirely.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Isn't there something uniquely terrifying about this? Think about the trauma this crew just endured.
It's horrific.
They weren't ambushed out of malice. There was no political ideology driving this. There was no enemy captain holding a grudge. They were nearly torn apart by a 1,000-year-old piece of code just running a categorizing algorithm.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it underscores the profound tragedy of the event. The crew suffered catastrophic losses, the ship was nearly destroyed, and it wasn't in a blaze of heroic combat against a sworn foe.
Right.
It was essentially due to a bureaucratic error by a forgotten, indifferent machine.
So they survive the encounter, the lattice powers down, and they limp out of the shoals. But surviving the physical attack is only the first phase.
The real challenge is just beginning.
Yeah, the sudden silence forces the crew to confront the emotional wreckage left behind. Because they did take losses. 3 crew members are dead.
And the ship's logs, to their immense credit, make sure we know exactly who they were. Petty Officer Willman, who had a habit of singing old jazz songs while she calibrated relays, and who always brought the graveyard shift doctors fresh coffee.
That's heartbreaking.
Senior Petty Officer Avigard, who never missed a shipwide dance night. Ensign Barlark, a bullion officer who volunteered his precious free time with the ship's feline welfare group.
They aren't just statistics on a casualty report. They are the heartbeat of the ship. And their sudden absence hits the survivors incredibly hard. You see the ripple effect immediately.
Especially with Ryan Collingway.
Right, take Ryan Collingway. He's a junior engineer who was thrust into a command role when Harlan went down. He is drowning in intense survivor's guilt.
He's actively skipping his mandated trauma therapy sessions with the ship's counselor.
He is just burying himself in the physical repair work of the lower decks, trying to outrun the grief by fixing conduits.
He's treating himself like a machine that just needs to keep running. But he can't outrun it. Finally, Allura, the ship's morale director, steps in.
She doesn't offer him empty platitudes, does she?
No, and she doesn't lecture him about Starfleet mental health protocols either. She simply brews him a cup of real, hand-dripped, non-replicated coffee. The sensory comfort of that small act is profound.
It really is.
She brings it to him, and she quietly but firmly forces him to step out of the loud corridor and into Chief Harlan's empty office.
She tells him that his desperate need to keep the ship running isn't a substitute for grieving. She says, you have to be strong out there in engineering, but in this room, you do not have to be okay.
And Ryan finally drops the wrench, sits in his wounded mentor's chair, and just breaks down and cries.
So what does this all mean? We see Ryan hiding in his work. We see Captain Corbin clutching a ceramic mug on the bridge, trying to hold herself together. How do people whose entire identities are built on fixing complex machines learn to fix themselves?
Captain Corbin is the perfect focal point for this struggle. Publicly, she believes she has to embody absolute, unbreakable stoicism.
She hosts the memorial service in the cavernous shuttle bay, standing rigidly at attention as they launch 3 flag-draped photon torpedo casings into the stars.
She is holding the emotional line for the entire crew.
Yeah.
She genuinely believes her duty as captain is to be the immovable object.
But privately, the cracks show. The logs detail a private subspace call she makes to her Aunt Judith, who she calls Ginny, back on the resort world of Risa.
The visual contrast in this log is deeply jarring. You have Corbin sitting in her sterile, quiet, dimly lit quarters, still wearing her stiff uniform.
And on the screen, Aunt Judith is lounging in bright, warm sunlight with a colorful drink in her hand.
And Judith just gently, surgically dismantles Corbin's rigid armor.
Corbin tries to hide behind the jargon. She starts listing off damage reports, giving statistics, claiming she's fully operational.
But Judith refuses to accept the deflection. She looks at her niece and tells her, steady does not mean silent.
I love that line.
She reminds Corbin that she doesn't have to carry the crushing weight of those 3 deaths alone. The crew isn't asking her to be an emotionless monolith. They are standing beside her in the grief.
It's that realization that you cannot process profound trauma in isolation that really defines the path forward for this crew. They have to lean on each other.
Absolutely.
And we see this theme culminate in a beautifully quiet, poignant scene in 10 Forward, the ship's lounge. between Commander McKinney and Dr. Dunross.
It's the perfect pairing. The tactical officer who broke the rules to save lives, and the trauma surgeon who had to deal with the bloody aftermath.
They retreat to a secluded, dimly lit booth, and they are sharing the very same bottle of Islay Scotch with the ridiculous bow that McKinney originally bought for Harlan.
And in this quiet space, away from the alarms and the protocols, they trade vulnerabilities.
McKinney tells a deeply personal story about spending a summer with his uncle in Montana, out near the ruins of Yellowstone. He talks about watching a massive herd of bison roaming the plains.
He describes seeing a young calf wander away from the safety of the herd.
And he noted that the nearest massive bull didn't charge over. He didn't aggressively corral the calf or force it back in line. The bull just stood his ground, watching, waiting with immense patience, until the calf realized it had drifted and returned on its own.
McKinney uses this memory to explain a foundational philosophy he struggles with as a tactical officer: the difference between control and protection.
Right. Control is demanding compliance by force, constantly adjusting the variables. Protection is making the boundaries clear, but allowing for choice, learning, and sometimes failure.
He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a smooth, heavy river stone he found on that trip to Montana. He carries it with him everywhere, in his uniform pocket, to remind himself of the stillness of that bull.
It's his physical anchor against his own worst instinct to become rigid, paranoid, and overly controlling when things go wrong.
And in response to this incredible vulnerability, Dr. Dunross opens up about her own ghosts. She shares a deeply guarded memory of a former patient, Ensign Markovich.
Years ago, she was critically short-staffed and overwhelmed. She cleared Markovich for a grueling, heavy-lifting repair detail, despite him showing ambiguous minor symptoms.
The physical exertion of the detail triggered a hidden underlying autoimmune syndrome, permanently damaging his nervous system and abruptly ending his Starfleet career.
And she carries a physical reminder, too. She pulls a small, dark stone out of her pocket, set with a jagged, deep red garnet.
She carries it to remind herself of the permanent cost of her decisions. It grounds her, reminding her of the impossible standards she holds herself to, and the fact that even her best medical judgment can result in tragedy.
It is a profound moment of mutual recognition. They both realize they are refugees from their family's suffocating expectations.
They both chose the immense pressure of Starfleet, and they are both carrying the heavy, invisible weights of command, consequence, and survivor's guilt.
And crucially, they choose not to isolate. They invite each other into their personal spaces. Dunross actually invites the hardened tactical officer to join her in her highly structured, elegant dosage holodeck program.
They are choosing connection over compartmentalization. This raises an important question about how we all navigate the aftermath of a crisis.
Which is?
You cannot control every variable. You cannot prevent every tragedy. The ancient automated lattice in the shoals proved that the universe is entirely unpredictable, indifferent, and sometimes arbitrarily cruel.
Yeah, you cannot stop the ambush.
All you can do is create the supportive conditions for recovery when the tragedy inevitably strikes.
We started this deep dive looking at a crew that relied entirely on perfectly calibrated sensors, pristine touchscreens, and rigid automation. We watched every single one of those systems violently fail in the dark.
And we saw them survive through raw grit, rule-breaking ingenuity, and ultimately vulnerable human connection.
The illusion of total control was shattered, but it was replaced by the much deeper, much more durable reality of human resilience. So we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Something to think about.
When the rug is suddenly pulled out from under you in your own life, when your own metaphorical automated lattice opens fire from the pitch dark and all your plans fall apart, do you retreat into a desperate attempt at control and isolation? Or do you reach out? Think about what serves as your riverstone or your garnet. What is the physical reminder you carry in your pocket that grounds you, that reminds you of the person you chose to be when the world goes completely dark?